Child's Play.
Hey everyone, I'm John from Let's Talk Entertainment and Media, and today we're going to be talking about Child's Play 1, 2, and 3 and their brand new 4K Scream Factory Blu-ray releases. But before we dive into that, if you are a fan of 4K Blu-ray reviews, movie reviews, TV reviews, tech reviews, we try and do them all here on this channel, and nothing helps out more than by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. So the first Child's Play was released on November 9th, 1988. It's directed by Tom Holland, no, not Spider-Man Tom Holland, and stars Brad Dourif as Charles Lee Ray, or Chucky. When a cop is finally closing in on Charles Lee Ray, who is a notorious serial killer in the area, he has no other option, but because of the power of voodoo, he could transfer his soul into the body of another, and this time he has to transfer his soul into a good guy doll. And that's what sets off this entire franchise. We get Child's Play 1, 2, and 3, and then eventually, a few years down the line, we get Bride of Chucky, Seed of Chucky, Cult of Chucky, Curse of Chucky, a reboot, and a series that is now on the Sci-Fi Channel. So this is probably one of the most popular or most financially successful horror slasher franchises of all time. Although Chuck might not be seen as an icon like Freddy Krueger, Jason Voorhees, or Michael Myers, but he is still probably in that second tier of slasher villains where people do know the name, even though it might not be the biggest widely known name. I do think that this is a character that actually does scare a lot of people. I know many people, a couple friends of mine, who are actually genuinely scared of Chucky. I guess it's just because of the fact that it's a doll that anyone could have that just comes to life and starts killing you. Can you imagine having that sitting in your room and then worrying about going to sleep at night and that thing coming up and slashing your throat? I mean, it's not a fear of mine, but I could see why that would be a fear of others. And Brad Dourif plays this role throughout the entire franchise except for the 2019 reboot, and that's played by Mark Hamill. But Brad Dourif is really what carries this franchise through. Brad Dourif is an Academy Award nominated actor for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and he just has a great body of work, but he's always going to be most known for playing the voice of Chucky. And he does such a good job at it. He doesn't pull any punches. He definitely doesn't phone in this role at all. He has no problem delivering those cheesy one-liners that he delivers throughout the whole franchise. Even his daughter is involved in the show on Sci-Fi, so this is a whole family affair now. He has done a great job throughout the entire franchise. You know, this could be seen as something that's just ridiculous, over the top, shouldn't have worked, and yet it somehow did. And I really do think that Brad Dourif deserves a lot of credit for that. And now diving into the 4K Blu-ray releases, we're going to just go in order. So the first one, like I said, was released on November 9th, 1988, directed by Tom Holland. This one had a $9 million budget. It made $44 million at the box office. It was distributed by MGM, and this was also filmed on location in Chicago, and that really shows throughout the entire film. Compared to 2 and 3, it is a lot more dirty and gritty and really feels like it was filmed on location. You capture that winter feeling of Chicago, like the ground is covered in snow, but it's like that melty snow, so it's like a few days after it snowed, so it feels like a very lived-in world, and you can only capture that by actually filming on location, and they did a great job. And this movie also features a lot of actual genuine scary kills. Killing that one doctor with that, like, basically electrocuting him to death, and he puts that on his head. That was actually genuinely frightening, and I had forgotten about that kill. This movie actually has a lot of really, like, creative and dirty and grimy kills that the rest of the franchise wouldn't have. So I really do think that this one stands out against the other ones. This and, like, Bride of Chucky really do stand out in the entire franchise, I believe. And I do think that the first one is a really good film. It's not my favorite in the franchise, but it's a really good film, and I could definitely see why this set off the entire franchise, because it's just a little kid, Andy, trying to convince everybody that his doll can really talk. He says he's the serial killer of Charles Lee Ray. No one believes him, and we don't even get it revealed that that's actually him until, like, I would say like 45 minutes into the movie. For the most part, he's trying to convince everyone. We don't even see Brad Dourif delivering lines to Andy throughout, so it's building that mystery. I think that does hurt the rewatchability, because it's just like, come on, how does nobody believe him yet? People are dying, so it's kind of hard. But originally, if you saw this and you didn't know, I could see this building a mystery, but obviously it's revealed throughout the whole trailers. We saw him put himself in the doll, and you've seen this franchise, so you know that Brad Dourif is already in that doll. and we're just waiting for the big reveal, so it can get a little frustrating. I think that hurts the rewatchability of this film, but that doesn't mean that this is a bad film. I still think this is actually a really good slasher horror film. Now, the 4K for this is where it really stands out, because out of the whole trilogy, they put the most work into the first one, I believe. This has a brand new 4K restoration for 2022. It's got a brand new Dolby Atmos track. It's got some new commentary tracks. It has a third bonus disc on here besides just the 4K Blu-ray, the Blu-ray. So I really do think that this is probably, out of the three, the one that got the most attention, it felt like, even though I don't think it is the best of the restorations, and I think that's just because of source material. Like I said, this was pretty much a low-budget shot-on-location film, and this does have Dolby Vision. It does, like I said, have Dolby Atmos. So it really did clean up a lot, but it's still hard. I felt like the Dolby Vision was like very good scene to scene. Some scenes it looked great. It really did make things pop, made the color look good, and made the blacks look black. But then other scenes, it might be a little too grainy, and it might look a little fuzzy and faded. And I'm assuming that's just source material because MGM had the rights to the first one, then they sold the rights to Universal right after this film, and I really do think that ends up hurting the franchise overall. And that kind of does hurt this film because I imagine that the original film that they actually shot on is not in the best of care as the other ones, because 2 and 3 were shot on Universal sound stages. So those have a lot more of a controlled environment, whereas this is shot in Chicago, so you have to actually deal with the elements, so that has to be put into consideration. And I do believe that's why out of the 3 that just came out, 1 might look the worst. But I do think that 1 had the biggest upgrade over the Blu-ray that was out before this. So it's a real catch-22. 2 and 3 might look better, but they definitely don't have as big as an upgrade that we have here on 1. So just to show you guys, this is the Scream Factory slipcover. Really nice box art. Actually, if you bought this directly from Scream Factory, there are 2 slipcovers. If you bought this from Best Buy, it also has a steelbook only for the first one, not for 2 and 3. One thing I want to take note of is the design of the discs. I actually think they're really cool. I do like it when companies put an extra little effort into putting a design on the disc and then don't just shell out a plain cover for the disc. For me, that's just something little. It's not a big deal if they do it or don't, but I like the little extra effort put in. A little attention to details is something that really, for me, drives that right home. And like I said, this is the only one of the trilogy that has a bonus disc on it. The rest are just the 4K and the Blu-ray. And the bonus disc, I was a little disappointed actually when I originally, because I thought that this was a lot of new featurettes on here, but as it turns out, all this stuff is pretty much on previous releases. On my original Chucky set that I have right here, which is actually a very good set, I must admit. It goes all the way up to Curse of Chucky, so it's only missing Cult of Chucky, and they actually, the next year after I bought that, they released another set in the good guy looking box that actually has Cult of Chucky in it, so that's the only one that didn't come in this box set, but they fixed that a year later, which is kind of disappointing if you bought this, because they're exactly the same release, just with that extra disc. So most of these bonus features are actually on that set or in that Universal set, so it's kind of disappointing that we didn't get really a lot of new stuff, but we did get some new audio commentary tracks and some new interviews, and that's all on here. And either way, or it had a lot of extras to begin with, and I completely understand that there isn't more. I'm just glad that there is a making of Child's Play on here, even though I've already seen that featurette. So it's not the worst thing in the world because there are a lot of extras here. It's just I would have liked more new extras, but that's minor complaints, like I said. I just wanted to point that out to you. Child's Play 2. Child's Play 2 came out in 1990. Like I said, after Child's Play 1, MGM sold the rights to Universal. It was a 2-year swing between that, and you could really tell that Universal put more money, gave them all the access, all the tools they needed, because 2 is a big jump in visuals. And the Dolby Vision on this 4K disc really helps to make those visuals shine. I think this was the shining star of the entire trilogy, but this also had a lot working with it to make it look great and sound great, because the source material is definitely way better than the source material to 1. Like I said, a lot of this was filmed on the Universal lot, on sound stages, controlled environments, best cameras, and it really does show on the film itself. And this is my personal favorite of the entire Child's Play series. It's either this or Bride of Chucky, they're neck and neck, but I usually say Child's Play 2 because I do really enjoy the dynamic between Andy and his new foster sister, even though I'm guessing after the end of this movie that they are probably never going to see each other again. But I did enjoy that dynamic. I enjoyed the kills in this. It definitely had a much fresher, sleeker kind of feel to it. It's Chucky, but he's not over-the-top Chucky like we would eventually get in 3 and Bride of Chucky. I think out of this entire original trilogy, this is definitely the most focused Now, Dan Mancini, who wrote 1, 2, and 3, he had to write this and then do a quick turnaround for 3, so I do think that he got it all right in 2, and then, we'll talk about 3 in a minute. And like I said, this has Dolby Vision, and it also has Dolby Atmos. Now, we did point this out in our Red Dawn 4K Blu-ray review, where on the Red Dawn 4K, it says that there is a Dolby Atmos track, and there isn't. It's only DTS 5.1 and 2.0. Now, on this disc, it says that there is no Dolby Atmos track, and it only has a DTS on it. But in reality, there is a Dolby Atmos track on this disc and on Child's Play 3. They only promote the new Dolby Atmos track on 1, but 1, 2, and 3 all do have new Dolby Atmos tracks that weren't available on the previous Blu-ray releases. Now, it's not pointed out on the actual box art and on the actual discs, but you can look this up on Blu-ray.com. It does point it out. So it just looks like that it's just a minor printing error that happened between Red Dawn and Child's Play 2 and 3. We did reach out to Scream and Shout Factory to find out exactly what happened. They haven't reached out back to us. But just if you're looking at the back of the box and you notice that it doesn't say Dolby Atmos on there, there is a Dolby Atmos track 100% on this disc. And not only that, it's a really good Dolby Atmos track on top of that. Because one thing that shines in this movie, there's a couple scenes that take place in the rain, and that, if you have Dolby Atmos, you know they really make good use of your speakers when it comes to rain scenes. For example, in John Wick 1 and 3, great rain sequences and using all your speakers. I'll tell you, this did that perfectly. There's a scene in this movie where a guy goes into a liquor store, and that's where the Dolby Vision and the Dolby Atmos really do shine, hearing that rain, and the sign, the liquor store sign, is just glowing red. Now, I went back and compared that same scene to my original Chucky set here, and it was very faded on that set. Just like the lighting, any time there was neon lighting, it definitely didn't pop, and then the Dolby Vision is what really pushes that over the top. Although I do have to admit, it's not as big of a jump from this set to this 4K in comparison to 1, but it is definitely a noticeable jump, especially if you watch the discs back to back like I did to really see the differences. This is a total upgrade from that. It's just not a huge leap like I think 1 was. But overall, I do think that 2 not only is a better film, but it is also the best of this entire 4K trilogy set that you can grab. So I could definitely recommend Child's Play 2 if you are a fan of it, and you are a fan of 4Ks. Definitely grab this one. Like I'll show you, it's the same thing like with the other one. Slip cover, open it up, same disc design, awesome disc design. I'm going to preach that for all 3. I truly do love what they did with the disc designs for this and all the effort that they put in. And now let's talk about the end of the original trilogy in Child's Play 3. So what's weird about Child's Play 2 and 3 is that Child's Play 1 came out in 1988, they sold the rights to Universal, and in 1990 they released Child's Play 2. Okay, that makes sense. But 9 months later in 1991, they released Child's Play 3. So they only waited 9 months to release a sequel, and on top of that, Andy goes from being a young kid in 1 and 2 to being a 16-year-old kid going to military school in Child's Play 3. Now, if you just saw this, I wasn't around in 1990 or 1991 for this, but if you just watched Child's Play 2 on VHS from Blockbuster or something, and then you go right into the theater and you're like, what the hell happened to Andy? How did he age that much in this time? I mean, they explain it, but it's just like, it's a very strange thing because it still feels very much like 1990 and 1991 in this film. It's not like this big 8-year jump made the technology jump or anything like that. This still feels very much, and I mean very much, like an early 90s movie. So it's just such a strange decision, and I've always said that Child's Play 3 and Seed of Chucky are the 2 worst in the entire franchise, but really, Seed of Chucky is by far the worst, and Child's Play 3 might still be the second worst, but it really isn't as bad as I had remembered. I think it's just that once you like taper your expectations, like I went into this time knowing that I don't really like Child's Play 3, and I did enjoy it. Definitely Brad Dourif this is where he goes really full-blown Chucky, banging out the one-liners and all the cheesy kills and all the cheesy lines, and you know what? That's fine. That's where the franchise was headed, and I think they nailed that kind of tone with Bride of Chucky, but this was more of like, they got that silly tone, but they're still trying to be serious. They're still doing this whole thing that the franchise does where they're trying to make people believe that this doll is real, and somehow they're always covering it up. You know, in the opening scene, we see them talking about bringing back the good guy doll, the positives and the negatives of it. And it's just like, you know, it's ridiculous. I know we have to make this franchise move along, and you know, making a slasher 101 will tell you, you know, the first thing you have to do is bring him back after they died. It's just, We resurrect him in the opening act, we kill him in the third. It's typical of every slasher movie for the most part, and they sure do it here, because they found a way to make sure they could bring Chucky back in the most ridiculous manner possible. The way they explain it, the exposition, you know, I totally understand it, but you have to turn your logic off for this one pretty much throughout the entire movie, and, you know, it works for certain scenes, this movie, but for the most part, this movie doesn't work for me. This is definitely the weakest of the original trilogy, but like I said, it's not the worst. I didn't hate my life watching it, but compared to 1 and 2, it's definitely a big drop in quality. Now, the 4K, on the other hand, just like the other two, not a drop in quality. I think that this is another great and noticeable upgrade from your old Universal Blu-rays, if that's what you do have. It's a big jump. It's not as big a jump as 1, like I said, but it's still a very noticeable and good jump. I compared this to my Child's Play 3 Blu-ray that I had, and it is definitely a noticeable jump. I think you're definitely going to... The HDR really does help this one out too. Like, this one takes place for the most part at a military school, so it's pretty flat, the coloring, just in nature of being in a military school, and it takes place in winter again. So a lot of, like, you know, dark greens, browns, and grays. That's the most, like, this color palette is flat. But at the very end of this movie, they go to a carnival, and I really do think that that really makes the Dolby Vision and the HDR shine. Obviously, because there's a lot of bright lights. You know, they have a whole section in a haunted house, and those scenes really do show you the effort that was put into this. Throughout the rest of the film, it's really hard to show that off because of the actual setting. You know, that plays a big part in it as well. And just like with Child's Play 2, this does have a Dolby Atmos track on it. Another killer one. I don't think it's as good as 2. I really do think that 2 is the standout in this entire trilogy personally, but it's still really well done. I still think this is a movie that's worth watching, and I can definitely recommend that you grab all 3 of these Child's Play 4Ks that just came out from Scream Factory. They're all well worth your money. Like I said, you could buy them right from Scream Factory, and you could buy a really nice set that comes with all 3 and a ton of extras if you're a huge Child's Play fan, or you could do what I did and just buy them from Best Buy with these slip covers. But if you're more of a Child's Play fan, I would order directly from Scream Factory, because they really do know what they're doing over there as far as making things that are for the collector. And if you're a huge fan of Child's Play, there's no reason for you not to buy directly from them. But if you're like me and you just wanted to have the discs and have the slip cover and have them all be uniform and have all the same slip covers, then I can definitely recommend buying them from Best Buy. Now, what I'm afraid of, and this just happened with Halloween from Scream Factory, is last year they released Halloween 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 on 4K, and then this year they're releasing 6, 7, and 8, still not including Halloween 1 and 2 Rob Zombie remakes that came in the original Halloween set from Scream Factory. And I'm worried that now next year we're probably going to get Bride of Chucky, Seed of Chucky, Cult of Chucky, and Curse of Chucky on 4K, because those are all in the Universal timeline, whereas the original Child's Play and the Child's Play remake are from MGM, and then obviously Universal's Sci-Fi Channel. So I'm worried that next year we might get the other ones on 4K and then to have to go through the same thing, whereas I would love, and I know Matt would love, one big box set like this, where they're all in there and it's all attention. But I don't know how that works. I'm not going to complain because I'm very happy with what they did here. But I don't want them down the line to release one big box set with all these in it. And then someone like me who just really truly does love box art design is going to want to grab it. Like, for example of that, E.T. is having a 4K release where they're doing a 40th anniversary 4K steelbook. It's the same 4K that I already have, but I truly love how the steelbook looks. And I might just grab it for that. And, I mean, I know that that's what they're supposed to do as far as a business. Hey, you know, we could double dip here, make some extra money. But, man, that does suck sometimes. It really does suck for my bank account and how my bank really looks at me as a person buying the same thing over and over again. Overall, if I'm going to rate Child's Play 1, 2, and 3 on 4K from Scream Factory, I'm going to give this entire trilogy a 9 out of 10. They did a phenomenal job here on these restorations. They really did put in a lot of work. I'm only taking a point off for the lack of new extras, but then you get every extra that has been released previously, and also for the printing error as far as not showing that there is a Dolby Atmos track on 2 and 3. But overall, if you are a Child's Play fan, a fan of 80s horror, a fan of slashers, definitely grab these on 4K. If you don't have them on Blu-ray, it's a total win for you. But if you do, I can understand waiting for sales or something like that. And overall, these are just movies that a lot of people are fans of. Don't expect to go into this seeing an Oscar-nominated film. That is not what this is for. These are just sit back, have some popcorn soda, enjoy yourself. This is for the horror fans. And I really do think you guys are going to love it. So, it's a recommendation from me. And if you guys enjoyed my review of these Child's Play 4K Blu-rays, nothing would help us out more than by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. And then after you do that, if you guys could just go out and tell all your friends.